Hello and welcome back to Articulate. I'm your friendly neighborhood Steve McJones, here to present such a special episode. It's so good because not only are we bringing you another Donnie Darko episode, I'm bringing you another Lucas Stengl episode, which is just a combination for the books. And the thing about this one is I've been trying to do a Donnie Darko movie review type episode since I first started the podcast. In the original few, I don't even know if I mentioned it at all, but I was going to do like a media of the month type of thing where I review like an album or a movie or something because I'm very involved in that world. At least I'd like to think so. I started the podcast in like September, and in October I wanted to do a Donnie Darko episode, and I don't know, it just never felt right, I guess, or never worked out. But I'm kind of glad because I finally got to do it with Lucas. Lucas and I actually recorded a few. It took a few tries to get this one down. We recorded one before, and pre-pandemic, way back in the day, and we recorded outside, and it all got kind of messed up. And then we tried to record again recently, and then the first time my computer was being a bee, and it was a whole thing. But we finally got it out, and all the work was way worth it because Donnie Darko it's not like a joke. It's not like a gag movie that you do like a fun review for. It's a real movie, and it's good. And the whole point of this episode, I think, is it's a review, a little bit of an explanation, and people like my dad or some people who are normies. I hate that term, by the way. It's a joke. I'm not for real saying the word normies, by the way, just if you were wondering. But for people who don't understand why I like it so much, this episode is jam-packed with all the reasons why it's one of my favorite pieces of art that I've ever experienced. So I hope you can see where we're coming from and at least appreciate the movie a little bit more after listening to this. Alright, Donnie Darko. Is that Ed Darko's son? I guess he was sleep golfing. Anyway, so I believe we started it off with last time we watched it, October, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the both of those.
Mm-hmm. And Donnie Darko, basically, we're gonna talk all about Donnie Darko. All right, we're gonna talk about it,
but then weave it in
some other subjects here. Yeah, but Donnie Darko is a very special movie to Lucas and I because it basically built our backgrounds.
Yeah. Let me ask you, when was the first time you listened to it? Or watched it?
I think it was at your house, in your basement. It was the theatrical.
Was scary.
Huh? Your basement was scary. There were lots of huge fucking spiders down there.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it was in the basement of your house, and it was the theatrical cut. And then immediately we kind of got into. Well, I heard about it even before then, because somebody described it to me. They were like, yeah, there's like this crazy 6-foot tall bunny rabbit. It's a whole thing.
6-foot tall.
And you're like, what? Yeah, I'm like, is it animated? Is it funny? And they're like, well, kind of funny. And
there's funny parts. Comedy ensues. Okay.
Comedy ensues, basically. When was the first time you watched it? Was it that time?
I think I'd watched it before.
Probably with your brother.
My brother told me about it, but it like went way over my head when he told me about it. As shit your brother he shows you does.
Yeah.
But then you come back to it on your own, and you're like, oh shit. Like,
yeah.
This is actually pretty good. And the same, like once the theatrical cut is fine. It's a solid movie for what it is. Mm-hmm. But you get the director's cut, and there's like 20 more minutes of like actual good, not just like shit they like had to cut.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff like should have been left in. Like
what the director intended for people to know through the movie, because.
But then you get stuff like from the book that's like included if you buy it. Like there's like a book in the philosophy of time travel in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's like kind of like important to understand. Like and they talk about it in the theatrical cut.
Right, but they don't explain what. Is in the book at all.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of grievances I've heard people have with the theatrical, with the movie, because they don't know that there's a director's cut.
Exactly.
They're like, well, they have this book that seems to be really important, but you have no idea what's going on in the book at all. And you're just like, damn. But yeah, so before, we really connected to it when we were teenagers, because we didn't even really know what it was about. And when people ask us what it was about back in the day, you're like, well, I mean, like, a 6-foot tall bunny rabbit saves a kid, and he has to like figure his shit out. Basically,
yeah. It's always like, wait, you haven't seen Donnie Darko? And they're like, no, tell me about it. And it's like, you don't. There's no go to. It's just like, well, you should watch it actually, but only the director's cut.
But only.
And they're like, well, I'm not gonna do that.
I'm not gonna do that. What I used to do was be like, I would just. I would be like, watch it, and then be like, all right, and I'd be like, no, you're not going to watch it, but I'm going to send you a link. I'm going to say, because that just makes it easy for them.
Oh, yeah.
And then, because I was super into illegally watching movies back in the day, too.
Oh, yeah. Definitely more into it now, personally.
Yeah.
But then,
then especially, too. I used to illegally download movies. I still do, but I used to, too. But now, we, as... you know, like you said before, as we're done with our teen years, we can kind of reflect on it a little bit more and understand a little bit more what it's about. And so the basis of it was what you said. It was a kid, Donnie, you know, figuring out his identity, basically, through a really tough process, which kind of sucks for him. But what happens is, you know, you're established that Donnie sleepwalks, and then he sleepwalks one night because he's called by the 6-foot-tall bunny rabbit, Frank, come, wake up. That's what it says.
Come.
Like the Neil deGrasse Tyson in Cosmos. Come with me. I like the Instagram meme where like
like the girl with like leading her boyfriend over, and like it's from like the first person perspective.
Yeah, but it's Frank leading.
What is it? 6-foot-tall bunny rabbit and a young Jake Gyllenhaal, a spry
young Jake Gyllenhaal. But yeah, and so he gets out of bed, and this bunny rabbit's like 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds until that is when the world will end.
You know, he's like, what?
Yeah.
That is when the world will end.
Right. And so. Yeah, and then comedy ensues.
Chaos and comedy. There's some character actors.
Yeah,
it's a joy.
But a jet engine falls through Donnie's house into his room, where he should have been, basically. So Frank saved his life. And what the jet engine is, technically, what we learned throughout the philosophy of time travel.
Is a metaphor for 9/11. Of course.
Basically. Yeah, that's the other thing with this movie, is it came out the same week as 9/11, apparently.
Yeah. October, maybe? So, like, the month... The year of 9/11.
It came out the year of 9/11, which was terrible for the sales.
Which was no good at all.
Yeah, right.
9/11 really took a hit on a lot of economics, you know?
Yeah, especially the Donnie Darko franchise.
It's like those,
and that's why S. Darko failed so severely.
It's like the inverted graphs. There's like the military-industrial complex, and then Donnie Darko, and they meet in the middle on that fateful day.
On that fateful day, back in 2001, and 9/11 isn't funny, but Donnie Darko in relation to 9/11 is a little funny. And that's kind of why it's become a cult following. I think it would have been a lot bigger if not for that, probably.
Yeah, but again, as we mentioned, there's a lot left out. Like, so
in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, you don't get the director's cut till at least like 5 years later, I think.
Really?
I mean, I just made that up, but I'm pretty. It's not
like
like
I can see it.
Because like, if a movie fails at the box office, it's not like nobody's like rushing to get out another cut of it. You know? Most of the time.
I'll look that up, but I feel like it's got to be like a deluxe version of an album where it's like the next year, you know, like within the next year, just because that's like, fair. Well, it's just out there. You don't want people to forget it. Yeah, capitalize for sure.
Whatever following there was, it's like, well, fuck, we put a lot of money into that.
Yeah. The theatrical cut of Donnie Darko was actually released October 26, 2001, while the director's cut was released 3 years later, May 29th, 2004. But yeah, and so basically the jet engine that falls through his room is an artifact, which is what we learned from the philosophy of time travel, and it has created a tangent universe. Donnie basically is the sole... forget what they're called. The living receiver. But he's the guy that has to get everybody back into the primary universe. Yeah. And that kind of sucks for him.
Yeah, he becomes like... I don't know how... It's like about the midpoint you kind of realize he's like going to be the the martyr.
The savior.
Yeah, to save the universe. Like, there's gonna need to be somebody's got to die here.
Yeah. How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, it's just like I feel like he's kind of working it out, and he's like figuring out. He's reading a book. Right?
You're right. So he realizes in the midpoint that, but he hasn't completely decided whether he's gonna do it.
Exactly.
Yet.
But like to me, when he's talking to his teacher,
mm-hmm.
and the guy's like explaining how time travel works, and he's reading this book independently too. So he's like putting this together in his head. He's got like the slinky over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, fuck.
yeah. And I think that's what we were talking about before the recording shitted out on us, was a little bit about how Donnie is a troubled teen, right? So we are prefaced that he goes to therapy. Can you do the quote again?
The quote. Oh, he's like, well, why don't you take the goddamn pills? Then mom and dad can pay somebody $40 an hour to listen to all your problems.
Yeah, I think that's it. Right off the bat. And so, and I want to go over the Gretchen scene again, right off. So,
I got
because like that's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. It's just like gives more character to Donnie, and again how he's messed up. So
I feel like you got to preface it with like the first class. You know, like they're reading a book, and the door opens, and some girl's like, I'm supposed to be in this class.
Yeah.
And fucking
Drew
Barrymore, and she's like, where should I sit? And she's like, sit next to the boy you think is the cutest.
Aww.
And it's like,
and all the girls are like, ooh.
Yeah, and she's like, quiet.
You're right.
And then she like doesn't, she's like a shy, timid girl. She like just.
Well, any girl in that situation, I would hope, would just be like, oh, this fucking guy right here.
This fucking. I'm gonna.
We're gonna, yeah. But she like kind of looks at Donnie, makes eye contact.
Yeah, gives like a little glance, and then looks up at Drew Barrymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I don't know. There's obviously like some tension between them,
Right. Yeah, they look at each other, and
yeah,
you're right. And so she's the new girl, and Donnie, we already know, kind of has problems. And he just went through this whole jet engine fiasco.
Oh yeah.
And so the next day or a couple, in the future, after that, it's before class because the school is canceled, right? So school gets canceled because he breaks the pipes, but we don't know that quite yet. But he breaks the pipes, and he sees Gretchen is waiting. He's walking home, and he sees Gretchen is waiting at the bus stop, and he's like, hey, school is canceled. And she is like with the bullies at the same bus stop, which is really unfortunate for her.
Big time.
I wonder if she has to encounter them every morning. That sucks. And he's like, Seth Rogen's like, I'll lick your boobs. And she's like, hey, you want to walk me home? And he's like, yeah, for sure. And yeah, this is just a really great scene because he starts walking. He's like, yeah, I'm Donnie Darko. And she's like, what is that? Some kind of superhero name or something? And she's like, what makes you think I'm not? And
it really does sound like a superhero.
It does, but it also could very well be like a person's name too.
Yeah, but like Donnie Darko from Middlesex. It's like some indescript city in America.
Right, in Colorado possibly. Who knows?
That actually would make sense with like the huge hills.
Yeah, the mountains. He's up on that hill, and I think it is Colorado, but I'm not for sure. But yeah, and then she's like, yeah, we had to move here, and I had to change my name because my dad has emotional problems. He's like, oh, I have those too. That's awesome.
He's so excited about it.
And then she talks about how she has to do this project about the greatest invention ever, and he's like, well, that's easy. It's antibacterial, whatever.
Soap.
Yeah, and she's like, what? Soap. It's one of the greatest inventions in the world. It's easy.
Yeah, he's like, what? That's not even he just has this already.
And we didn't even mention this. How he's just like, hey, so do you want to go with me?
Yeah, she's like,
what?
Where do you want to go? She has no clue what he means. And he's like, no, like, that's what people say here. Like, you want to go with me.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, oh, yeah, sure. Like,
yeah.
Now she's the one that's excited.
Yeah, true.
He's like, okay, cool. She's like, I'm going to go home.
I'm going to go now? And he's like, oh, sweet. All right, cool, yeah. But yeah, so, I mean, he kind of, throughout the movie, figures out, why he has to be the savior. First of all, why, and then why he wants to do it, as opposed to just being forced into the path. But I did want to go back to Drew Barrymore, because we bring it all back to Drew Barrymore. Bring it back to Drew. Yeah, she was actually the driving factor to get this movie made, if you recall.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
I read the book on it or something, and she you know, it was a good script, right? But it wasn't, you know, it took a lot of pushing to get the script made because of probably the confusion surrounding plot and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like, I don't think 80s nostalgia had been capitalized anywhere near like it is today. You know, you got like Stranger Things was like a whole thing.
You're right.
And so it's like, to go back to the 80s in 2001, it's like, why?
I didn't even think about that.
And then, but like, this guy knew, Richard Kelly.
Richard Kelly, the Vomiteer.
That's like his nickname. Like, bro, remember Richard Kelly back in high school? The fucking Vomiteer.
You mean
I remember the Vomiteer.
Richard Kelly's first film before Donnie Darko in college was this project called The Vomiteer, about a guy who just couldn't stop throwing up.
That's what made me think of Lynch, because Lynch actually made this short film before he was like super popular, where it's called like 6 People Getting Sick, and it's literally just like one head pops up on the screen and it starts like spinning around and throwing up, and it does that for like a minute, and then another one pops up and then both of them are going, and it does that 6 times.
That's the whole film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 6 minutes.
It's about 1 minute for each sick person. Well, not sick person, sick head, I suppose. So Drew Barrymore found the script, and she was really the driving agent.
And like funded it.
And I could see it, if I recall.
I think that's right.
I think that's definitely part of it. That was one of the big things to get the movie made. I mean, that's always one of the bigger things when getting movies made is to get the funding.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the movie has a lot of big names, but a lot of those names were made, maybe not made by Donnie Darko, but
True.
Like Ashley Tisdale. Nobody remembers her for Donnie Darko.
Yeah,
but
she was in it.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of her career, as far as I know. And the same with like
even Seth Rogen. That was before Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, exactly. It was like his literal first role.
Jake Gyllenhaal, even. What did he have before
Maggie
that?
Gyllenhaal.
You're right, Maggie.
Jake Gyllenhaal was like a child actor, but
Patrick Swayze. What did he have before that?
That's true. Patrick Swayze though and Drew Barrymore are like the two that it's like, oh fuck, you got them.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So yeah, it was. I mean, good for Drew Barrymore. She got it done, but her character is also a crucial character. Like we were talking about how. Well, I mean, to us, even what was Drew Barrymore before that? The 50 First Dates girl, the E.T. girl. You didn't even know those until I mentioned them. Right. And the girl who showed Johnny Carson her tits on Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
But you don't see them.
I need to go back and do some research.
Just do some for science, right? But yeah, so she becomes this teacher who is a really. I mean, she's the classic English teacher who actually like wants children to learn to think.
Actually cares.
Yeah, she calls out a girl. She's like, Jody, if you'd have actually read the 13-page short story, which would have at a
whopping 13 pages, would have kept you up all night.
Calls her up, then you would realize this and that. And so we actually had a teacher our sophomore year.
Together we were in this class together, and it
with
was
Drew
English.
Barrymore,
and our teacher was practically Drew Barrymore. Like,
basically.
I was joking about it, but again, like I don't see how, like, I feel like our teacher had to have seen that movie and was like, that's how you play an English teacher. Like, an engaged English teacher. And she just, like, took it on as, like, a character role. It's like a Synecdoche, New York.
Yeah.
She's like, I am Drew. She became, I am become Drew Barry.
Yeah, and at that point, I mean, yeah, and so in the movie, she's also one of the manipulated living. So she's helping Donnie. She, like, wants to be somebody who helps him get to his fate that he's supposed to do. And travel within God's channel, basically. Which is why, she's really amazing in the movie. So Drew Barrymore is the manipulated living in the movie, which, again, you have to learn through the director's cut. Unfortunately, which is why a lot of people get so confused about everything, and I feel bad. I mean, I still was confused after the director's cut, but I've also, at this point, probably seen the movie at least, like, 25 times.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have. But I've gone like online and there's like a whole website that was made back in the 2000s, so it has that like aesthetic to it. But like there's all the facts basically, and if you just spend like an hour reading that, it's like a whole nother movie. Like it just puts all this stuff into context that the movie doesn't. Yeah. Even the director's cut. So it's like you have to watch the theatrical cut, have enough interest in it to want to watch it again at some point, and like then have enough interest to like actually invest time in finding this like director's cut, and then on top of that, do some like outside research. But
like you said, each time it does become a different movie because it's like what we were saying before. When you explain it to somebody on the surface, they're like, "What's it about?" And you're like, "Well, it's about a bunny who saves a guy." and then he kind of fucks up a school in a way, and then he destroys the world and then dies, basically.
Damn. That's actually wild, dude. What if the school is like a metaphor for like regular society and like how you go through school and you're like compartmentalized into like this one role of being a student and like one way to learn and one way to think.
Damn.
And then like
he's the only one that's different.
Yeah.
And like his parents recognize it.
Yeah.
They're just like, Donnie, if they tell you, if they say that you're weird, you know what you tell them? Fuck you.
Fuck you. It's like Jeff Dunham.
Yeah.
It made me think of a Jeff Dunham character.
I'm sorry. But yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely one way to see it because, yeah, he is different and he's not accepted by anybody pretty much at the school besides Gretchen, who also is a little different in her situation.
Yeah.
But that kind of goes with what I was saying earlier about how the lenses, you can just look at this movie through so many lenses. And one, like, just right off the bat, like a classic lens to look at a movie through is the feminist lens. And yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal is the typical... he's the main character, like, he's a dude, but throughout it, his therapist is a woman who helps him solve a lot of his problems. His mom is a very strong, powerful woman, Drew Barrymore, which we covered.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. Maggie Gyllenhaal, who just got into Harvard. Even his younger sister, Sparkle Motion, it's dancing, but, I mean, she's a kid, she's allowed to be dancing, and she is really good at it. She got to, like, a thing beyond that.
I don't know if because that scene is, like, in slow... Actually, all the scenes you see him dance are in slow motion.
Yeah.
There's the school one and then the like main one that gets him to the contest, but they're actually like just really like I don't know choreography at all, but they seem like they're very well choreographed.
Yeah, for like a school. Well, I mean, they got a movie team behind the choreography directing it. But no, I think Samantha's definitely the worst one of the dancers, but she's Donnie's sister, so what are you going to do?
We'll have a whole nother episode on analyzing the dances in Donnie.
Yeah. We should get to the music at some point eventually, too. But I do want to, again, off of that, Drew Barrymore being one of those important figures within his life and how she affects him and being the manipulated living, she writes on...
She gets fired.
You're right.
I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it's definitely worth mentioning. Because, it's sad that she got fired. But, I mean, again, through the feminist lens, it's like, wow, she got fired for actually being a good teacher.
Yeah, it was trying to, like, engage the students with, like, I don't know, banned books or whatever.
And that kind of goes along with what you're saying about the classic school mentality.
Yeah.
Classic society, just, like, learn one way, basically. Yeah, so she, on her last day, she gets... like, Donnie comes in.
Yeah, while she's cleaning out her desk.
Yeah, and she has written on the board, cellar door. And while it's not explained why she wrote it up there, she wrote it up there to just leave to leave the students with a last parting gift.
Yeah,
I guess. Damn. With the most beautiful phrase in all of English literature, I guess. I think that's what it's described as. Yeah. And it's not quoted by anybody, but that's what the quote is, that cellar door is the most beautiful. And we kind of talked about that a little bit, how the double L's, like you said.
Yeah, the two double letters look nice to get, like, L and O.
Yeah, the double, with her calligraphy, with Drew Barrymore's calligraphy.
And just her face in the same shot, like,
cellar door. But, I mean, the idea of a cellar door, too, like, in the fall, you look down, like, a little stairs and kind of...
the nostalgia to it, just, like, in those two words.
Cellar door. I mean, I feel like I connect cellar door with my grandparents for some reason, too. It's probably, like, an older thing, maybe.
Yeah, well, I feel like it, like, nobody calls it a cellar anymore.
You're right.
So it's just, like, the nostalgia
you mean the basement door?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you mean...
a basement?
Yeah.
The fucker. No, but then it ends up foreshadowing, like, the location of the Deus Ex Machina at the end.
Right. So at the end of the movie, again, Donnie still doesn't know what his fate is. Like, well, he knows what his fate is, but he doesn't know how it's going to play out at all, basically. Right. And, I mean, he can see where the spheres go in the immediate future, but it starts kicking in when things start ramping up towards the climax of the movie. They're just at this party, and he just has made love with Gretchen.
Damn, the climax is his climax.
You're right. But yeah, he's at the party, and then out of nowhere, he gets that sickness look on his face that comes only when pretty much he's just talking to Frank or under the trance in Dr. Thurman's office.
Yeah.
And the camera just does like a 360 around him, and you realize that something's going on, and he kind of falls to his knees because he just feels that wave of like nausea over him, and that's probably the manipulated dead affecting him.
Yeah.
But what happens is he gets on his knees and starts to see. You think they're visions, and it's at least in the director's cut, you see this video game he was playing before of like a car like flipping over, and you kind of see something, and then Gretchen. You realize after he gets out of the vision that he's looking into Gretchen's future. He's looking into her sphere. And so he stands up and he's like, come on, we got to go. And he does the Instagram meme thing where he pulls Gretchen. Come on, let's go on an adventure.
And Hulk Hogan, his friends, just come with him.
Yeah, the Hulk Hogan has friends for no reason, really.
Yeah, I feel like they could have left him alone, like...
They didn't help, that's for sure. They were kind of Donnie, what are you doing? Donnie, come on.
Come on, Donnie.
I just want to get out of here. I brought four beers. I stole from my dad. Yeah, well, keg beers for pussies. But yeah, so that's basically, I think that's when he realizes his fate is imminent at that point.
Yeah.
The time is coming up, the 28 days is ending, and the only real clue he has is from manipulated living, which he has read about already. He's read about the manipulated living and probably assumes that the Drew Barrymore character is part of that. And so he's like, cellar door. And they go to, well, and it's Roberta Sparrow's house, which he's been around a couple of times, which again, we have to talk about Roberta Sparrow a little bit. Grandma Death. That's a horrible name.
Okay.
I've heard she's loaded. She like defends her at first, but then she's like, I've heard she's loaded. She's like drunk.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's definitely loaded. The mom.
You're right. Yeah. So it's at a dinner table scene where where Donnie is talking about the book of time travel, the philosophy
of time
Mormon,
of course.
The Book of Mormon, right? And he's like, yeah, it's written by Roberta Sparrow, and the dad's like, oh, Grandma Death, and he's just like, yeah, this was kind of earlier in the movie, and she's like, yeah, a lot of kids used to try to break in up there because she's loaded.
Yeah, which I didn't even remember until you pointed it out. Like, there's like the whole, like, he mentions that people try to rob her, like when he was a kid. Like,
Robert Sparrow. Robert. Hardly know it.
Robert.
But yeah, but so, I mean, and she's also the one who wrote the book, so Donnie is already connected to her because they are both the hero in their own situations, which is interesting. I heard that, I didn't hear, but somebody was like, they should make a movie with like a prequel about Roberta Sparrow, which would be tight.
That would be tight.
Yeah.
Much better than Darko.
Yeah, much better.
If I had to guess. Never seen it,
but that only failed because of 9/11, if you recall correctly.
If you bring it all back to the board, you'll see that we made connections earlier.
But yeah, so he's like, all right, we got to go to Roberta Sparrow's house where the cellar door is, and they go through the cellar door, and down there, they don't know what they're looking for still, but they find out down there, they find the two bullies who had broken in to steal some shit from them, and this is where Donnie comes across the realizations, I think. Like, this is where the shit happens. This is like the actual climax, right? So they're out there, he's holding a knife to him, and Donnie, come on, we got to get out of here, and he's like, stay back, and then, that's when Gretchen gets hit by the car, and it's Frank, who is manipulated dead, who Donnie then realizes he has to kill Frank right then and there, right? Yeah. He realizes that he has to kill Frank, and why he has to kill Frank. He realizes that Gretchen dies because now he feels like he loved until a point, and he has lost to a point, and realized that's what life is about, right? Yeah. And then... and then he realizes that, well, this timeline is fucked.
Yeah, I was going to say, he also, I mean, it's pretty easy to justify once a guy, kills you. Your boo thing. Like,
your boo thing.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah. And he realized he accepts his fate, that the whole point of the movie is that he has to be the savior, the messiah, the Brian of it all.
The Brian.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the life of Brian of it all.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, but he has to die so that this world can live on. And, I mean, I think that's a big part of life, just in general. So this movie is about finding your identity, which is what kind of bringing it back to it. What Donnie has to figure out who he is, and then what he does in the world. And I think I actually talked about this with Stephen Barrett on one of our early episodes about how it's crazy how it all happens at once, because we were like figuring out who we were,
right?
And then at the same time you have to figure out your role in life, basically, and what you want to do from there.
Yeah, and that's like, I don't know, it's like that's a lot of like what your teen years are, is like finding your identity. But then towards the end, or maybe even into your 20s, you realize like your identity is kind of going to shift over time. Like you're going to have the kernel that is you.
Yeah.
But the Donnie of it all.
The Donnie of it
all. And you're just going to evolve over time. Like you're going to transform.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like that's like transformation is like one theme I see in it, and then like identity is another.
Yeah.
They're definitely related.
Yeah, definitely I can see it. And which is scary, because part of accepting that is accepting death, but also that you're going to love somebody who's going to die or that you're going to break up with.
Right. Part of that transformation is like it ends in death for like everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone that's ever tried it.
That's ever tried. There's a test that death is the ultimate test for your ass, ain't it? Yeah. We are gathered here today to celebrate the dearly departed. That's a Richard Pryor quote, by the way. Look it up sometime. It's called Eulogy, possibly?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
On streaming services now.
In other words,
pre-save.
But yeah, so, I think that might be one of the reasons why we connected with it so much, is because even as personally, up until this point in my life, I've always looked forward to being older. Yeah. I don't know about you. It's like, I don't want to be a high schooler kid. And then you're in high school and you're like, oh, none of this matters. Like have you ever looked at the game? I played the board game of life. High school is not on the board game.
It's not on the game at all.
And so in high school, I'm like, well, fuck this shit. And then you get to college and you're like, oh, so this is what life is, but I don't want to be here. Like, I don't like this shit either. Yeah. I don't like any of this. I don't like any.
Take it down.
Yeah, I just take it down. And then watching the movie as a kid, realizing those steps in this stages that he went through is kind of like, wow, he kind of is realizing some of these things. He's doing shit.
Well, and that's the thing. We've talked about it a few times, I'm sure. But, like, it's hard to gauge whether or not we would like this movie as much as we do if we hadn't seen it when we were, like, 13, 14, like, those formative years.
Definitely.
Because it's just, like, it's really tough to get in that headspace ever again of being a teenager.
You're right. And that's, so many adults forget that, and they're just like, well, why don't you just get your shit together? And it's like, well, I'm a child.
Yeah, like a literal child. And it's just like and it's the same shit that's like going on with Donnie. It's like you see this world around you, and it doesn't really make sense, like, with how you think reality should be, or how you, like, have been taught even reality is, but then you just have to, like, embrace it. Like, you have to engage yourself with it in whatever way you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, coping, and that's acceptance, and love is one of those things.
Exactly.
Politics and violence, what do? You just fall in love.
Damn. And then death, like, is a part of it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be when you're, like, a teenager, but sometimes
it is, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, so, you're right, like, showing it to people now is real hard, but that's the thing, though, like, see, I don't show it to anybody unless I really like them. Like,
exactly.
Listen, unless I really like them, because it's going to, first of all, if we're close friends, you're going to see this. I'm going to talk about this movie quite a bit. You're going to need to get the references.
Oh, yeah. No, we've just been talking for, like, a little bit of time now. And we've, like, I feel like we've, like, quoted half the movie already.
You're right.
And it's just, like, they just come so naturally.
Yeah.
You just know them.
Right. Along with, I think you should leave a couple of times.
Oh, for sure. It's a little tough to get all
random. No, but, like... But Donnie's just, like, nothing. He, like, doesn't matter in the end.
Drew Barrymore, Jake Gyllenhaal. These names I know better than my own grandmother's.
Homegrown Simpson.
Homegrown shit. Seth Rogen shit.
Ew, I don't need that.
That's worse than in The Simpsons.
Much worse. But yeah, you just layer these quotes in and everything, and I think they're really important. And if you can get into the movie, it's really it can be something that hits really hard.
Oh yeah,
for you.
Yeah, no, it was formative to. I don't know about you, but it's just formative to, like, my life.
Very much so. And like I said, I rewatched it again this year, and I was like, damn, no, this still holds up. Like, it's a good movie.
There's the love and death.
Oh yeah,
the whole scene.
All life can't be simplified into love and death. Yeah. Or no, it's love and fear.
You're right.
And honestly, as I grow up a little bit, it becomes clear that emotions do tend to all kind of spiral back to love and fear. But I think the point Richard Kelly was making is that, first of all, kids don't see it as that. Like, you can't just be like, go up to a kid and be like, oh no, you're acting this way out of fear, and then have them be able to just understand that.
Yeah.
You know, you're acting out, you're rebelling because you're afraid.
Yeah.
And it's just not that simple.
Well, kids just have like, and I don't know if it's like true across the board, but I feel like kids do have like a higher emotional intelligence in the fact that like when we have emotions, we try to like name them, like adults. I'm saying like. When we have emotions, we try to name them or justify them.
Right.
Whereas if you ask a kid like why they did something or why they acted that way, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
and they're happy with that answer.
But why did you do this? And they're like, I don't know that one either.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right. And it's like you think about it, you're like, it's like you're not satisfied with that answer at all if you're the one asking the question. Yeah. But then you think about it a minute, and it's like, I prefer that than being lied to.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's just like.
Yeah, that's true. They don't, and that's what's kind of shitty about growing up is like actually realizing where these things come from.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, that's kind of shitty. We're like, oh, that comes from my parents. Good. Now I have to accept that my parents fucked me up.
But that goes back to what I was saying about like how you, like Donnie's trying to like find himself in this world that doesn't make sense to him, and that's like the same with kids. It's like you, as a kid, you're like you don't want to name these emotions because you don't have like the right words for it, or you don't want to justify them, or you justify your actions by your emotions, either way. Right. But then you're like growing up, and like the world around you is doing that, and like it's collecting like all this stuff, like the human condition, all into like love and fear, and it like just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
and you have to like
figure out why it makes sense. I guess
you just have to like consolidate the facts of your brain. And in reality, and it's usually not fun,
It's really,
all while you're just getting like bombarded with hormones, just like.
Yeah, that's a lot.
All the time.
You know what is fun? The soundtrack for this movie.
Oh yeah, which was also formative to me.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's what you were saying about like the '80s originally when we were talking about it. How it's these songs from the '80s. So basically, a lot of the bands: Tears for Fear, INXS.
INXS. Echo and the Bunnymen.
Echo and
the another
Bunnymen,
one. Killing Time, dude. You hear that like open up on the director's cut. It's like the opening song.
Well, that's for the theatrical cut.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but which is crazy that the two movies have different soundtracks.
You're
just right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. The opening is the
INXS.
INXS. What's the song?
Never
Tear Us Apart.
Yeah. Yeah, just a bass and so good.
And then the sax. I don't think they have the sax solo in it, but if you look into the song, into the soundtrack at all, then you're gonna find the sax solo. But also, I wrote an entire essay about how all the music is directly correlated to what happens in the movie. Like there are literal quotes that are like, "That's almost a little too much like the movie."
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I know like Head Over Heels, the Tears for Fears song, where it's like it's a not a montage, but like I think it's like a single shot, right, all through like the school.
Yeah.
And you're introduced to all the school characters, like the song's playing over, and like it's just insane. Like like the bus stops in front of the school. It's like upside down, I think, right? And the back, they come out the back door.
Oh, because they're badass.
Yeah, they're badasses. Like they're the older kids, and so like right when they step on the ground is like the opening beat. It's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah.
It just like goes into
the school bell rings and it like fades out at the end.
Yeah, I actually have that essay, I believe, posted on my website under it's just Donnie Darko review. I think if you go back far enough, you can find it, or you could probably search it somehow, like articulate Donnie Darko review, possibly. But that's might be what this episode is called.
Yeah. I should go back and read that actually.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah, it also just, like, I don't know, the music, like, really helped me, like, realize there is, because, like, at 13, 14, you just listen to whatever's on or I did, at least, whatever is on the radio. You find, like, songs through Guitar Hero, maybe.
Yeah.
But even, that's, like, very limited, you know?
No, my phone back in the day was, like, Fireflies and, like, Dynamite. Not good, that's for sure.
But, like, Donnie Darko just made me realize there's, like, good music from every era.
Yeah.
Like, no matter...
That are kind of hidden gems, too.
Yeah.
Because...
Exactly. Like, Tears for Fears, In Excess, they were, like, popular, but they were also, like, the alternative bands of the 80s.
Right.
And as far as I know. So, like, it kind of makes...
Well, before, like, the Stranger Things era, even, like, Toto was kind of drifting off into the distance.
Yeah.
And then somebody brought back Africa, whoever
I think it's Rivers Cuomo.
Rivers Cuomo actually brought back Africa.
Whoever.
But there's songs just in every single era that just are going to be forgotten because they weren't the number one hit at the time.
Right.
Which is annoying because the number one hits of our time are not songs that I want to remember in the future.
Right. Well, yeah, but even, like, Tears for Fears, like, that album's, like, super big. It has, like, Everybody Wants to Rule the World on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has, like, there's another one that's really popular. But then, so it's like those songs have lasted. Like, we've heard that in our childhood, you know? But then, like, Head Over Heels, I had never heard until Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
And, like, nobody references except in reference to Donnie Darko.
You're right.
It's, like, such a good song. On its own.
If you just get into it. I mean, yeah, definitely.
They mix, like, guitars, they mix piano.
Like you said, it was almost like the start of alternative music in a way.
Yeah,
probably not, but like in some way.
Yeah, as far as like I know it, and like you know, I'm not like an expert on alternative music, but this movie definitely made me go down a path where that's primarily what I listen to. Like,
right.
It's not much else.
Yeah, and then in turn, I stole from your music taste, and then I formed my own.
Donnie Darko is the kernel of it all.
Right. It's the kernel of all things that are. But yeah, I think that's pretty much... I mean, we could go on for days about Donnie Darko. We could reenact the entire movie right now if you wanted to. Which I already did if you reference the script reading from a couple episodes ago.
I think it is worth pointing out, though, that I feel like Donnie Darko also started this trend of, like, multiverse movies.
Oh, right.
And,
that's
like,
what we...
like, entered it into the pop culture.
That was in 2001.
Yeah.
And now, like, that's what we were saying. Like, if you try to describe this movie to somebody before, you're like, well, there's a tangent universe, and they're like, oh, it's one of those movies.
Yeah.
But now it's like, no, there's a tangent universe, and people are like, oh, like a multiverse? And you're like, well, not necessarily.
It's like a tangent off of the multiverse.
Right. Which is really cool. That there's just so many things that this movie did before other movies.
Oh, yeah.
This movie is the best movie. Of all other movies,
it's up there. I mean, we've talked about it, but for me, it's just kind of, like, in my top 10. Like,
no matter
solidly.
what.
Yeah, like, I don't see it getting booted. But, like, other movies, it's like, I'm going to watch a ton of, like, it's fluid, you know?
Right.
Like, what's in the top 10 at any point.
Sure, I agree.
But Donnie Darko is just, like, locked in there.
Yeah, definitely. It's just the one that you immediately, when people are like, oh, what's your favorite movie? And then Donnie Darko is just right off the top, but you don't say it. We don't talk.
You don't talk about it.
Yeah. But it's like, there's a difference between, obviously, your favorite movie and the best movie that you like. But I think Donnie Darko is objectively my favorite.
And there's so much that, like, goes into it and, like, what makes it like that it's just, like, I feel like I don't always do the best job of, like, explaining why it's up there. But it is, you know, and, like, you kind of just have to watch it and, like, come to it on your own.
I think this whole podcast episode could be a reference when people are like, oh, why is it your favorite? It's because everything that we've just talked about just now.
The music, the actors, the acting, the plot.
The complexity of it.
The relation to, like, a kid that watches it for the first time. The relation as you grow, like, transform throughout life.
Maggie Gyllenhaal, Drew Barrymore.
So such good stuff.
It's really good. Really good. So, I mean, obviously... If you're listening to this, I hope you have watched the movie already. But, you know, think about it even a little bit more. Like, you know, try to get into it some more.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want to, like, promote your blog here at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I did the Donnie Darko review on my website, but if you perhaps Lucas has some other interesting things that he might want to add.
Yeah, I actually started a blog recently that's, like, just kind of reviewing, analyzing, like, the books I read and
What's
stuff.
it called again?
Reviewership.
Oh, dude, that's such a good name.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, like, came up with it kind of high one night. But
Reviewership? It just sounds like something you should already know. So,
right, I mean, it sounds like an app. It's like, oh, you don't have reviewership?
Oh, yeah, obviously I have a reviewership app. Yeah.
And you, like, talk to your friends that do have reviewership.
Right.
So I've been, like, reviewing books for a bit, but I kind of want to get more into, like, analyzing them in, like, a long form way. So I made this blog, and then I'm going to do, like, I've done one movie, There Will Be Blood, so
Oh,
far.
yeah.
So I'm gonna try to mix in more music, like albums. I listen to albums a lot. So
Yeah, definitely.
put some of the, but it's also like now when I'm on break, it's much easier to read than like take in other media, because I have like a ton of time to just sit there. But I feel like during the school year, it's gonna be a lot easier the other way.
Right.
So like
more
I'm gonna
movies
more movies, more music.
Yeah, and that'll be cool just to have. I mean, it could be a reference for anybody that's really. I mean, I think based off of books and shit, what it started as, you do give, it's not a biased look at what these projects are. You kind of come at it from, I mean, obviously it's biased because it's you, but you take in the facts of what you pull from the context of the media and like what it's about, how it's formed, the style, all that sort of stuff. You don't just be like, well, it's kind of shitty because they're shitty.
Yeah, well, some of them. No, I appreciate that though.
Yeah, definitely.
I try to go for like more subjectivity, but also like analyze it, not just like it's like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, because like I personally don't read reviews a lot because it kind of just pisses, like I don't want this one person's view of like it's like it's good or bad, and it's like polar opposites. It's like there's like
it's not fear and love.
Yeah, it's like art is so, it can be formative to you, it can be like just something you read and like reference in conversation, it can be something you take with you for the rest of your life. Like there's so many different avenues. So and
I completely get that. And there can be like bad movies that you're allowed to like too. Like you can rate. Like I like Kingsman the movie, which is not a great movie. Like it's kind of basic, and some people don't like it. But like for me, that's one of my top 10 just because I really like it.
Yeah, it's just a good movie. It's like off the top of your head, you might not like know why, but you go back and watch it, and you're like, yo, shit, this part. Yeah, and like There Will Be Blood is like another like a top 10 for me, and it's like I go back and watch that and get something new every time. Yeah. So like I've seen it, probably 10 times, and you put those together, and it's just like there's implicit analysis that I've done, Right. So it's just like I'm trying to get that like out on a piece of paper, I guess.
Yeah, on a platform somewhere.
Basically.
Yeah. Now you have a platform. Now what you gonna do with it?
What you gonna do?
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think this was finally. I think we got it out.
Oh yeah.
We finally recorded what we needed to say.
It's gonna be a bitch to edit.
But I'll figure something out. If I can do it a whole entire screenplay. Well, first of all, Papa Smurf didn't create Smurfette. Gargamel did. She was sent in as Gargamel's evil spy with the intention of destroying the Smurf village. But the overwhelming goodness of the Smurf way of life transformed her. And as for the whole gangbang scenario, it just couldn't happen. Smurfs are asexual. They don't even have reproductive organs under those little white pants. And that's what's so illogical, about being a Smurf. What's the point of living if you don't have a dick? Oh, wait. She goes. She's going back to the box now. We may still have mail. Mail. Here it is, and this could be it. Oh, no dice, Grandma. No, sorry. Someone ought to write that bitch. Hey, you fuck. Shut up.